morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Hi. Today is what would have been Milton Caniff's birthday. He can't celebrate because he's dead. But we're going to do a little portrait of him, and while I get the chat room set up, we will be entertained, like usual, by Burial Grid. Which, Burial Grid just had their first review of their upcoming album. I'm very excited to hear at some point. So, yeah, I look forward to that. I'll make sure I tweet out the review. I haven't done that yet. What was I doing? Oh, yes, chat room. Hi, my tea hasn't kicked in yet. I'm still drinking it. Alright, come on. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Milton Caniff, he was a cartoonist from a long, long time ago. Worked on such comics as Terry and the Pirates, Steve Kenyon, and Mel Call. He Mail Call was kind of his response to, his way of helping out during World War II. You can actually find collections of it. Basically, it was a comic he did that gave GI something to spank to. Now, one of my favorite things about Milton Caniff, and especially old school cartoonists, is the way they would turn their art into a type of vaudeville performance, which is obviously, compared to what I'm doing right here, a bit of an inspiration. Except they did it live on a stage, which is a whole other thing. He would do these ginormous portraits with live models. It was something. And he was somebody that three of my favorite artists looked up to: Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, and Al Williamson. And if you look at their work, you can actually see, if you're familiar with Milton Caniff's work, you can actually see their work in it, which is absolutely, really kind of fascinating. I mean, I always talk about how Al Williamson's kind of like the go-to guy for swamps. My memories of Al Williamson's work was doing the Star Wars comic strip in the newspapers. And hold on, drinking some tea, y'all. And I was born in '77, so I was too young to really remember before Empire Strikes Back. But those Dagobah comics, man, I mean, those are like literally like some of my earliest memories. Is Howard Chaykin's Star Wars graphic novel, some Kurt Swan Superman, and Al Williamson's Star Wars. Oh, and of course, Michael Whalen, who is the artist that made me want to become an artist. Anyways. Also, Milton Caniff was one of those cartoonists that was, able to meet the president because of his art, which to me is kind of crazy because, I mean, today, and I mean, no offense to some of the great cartoon strip artists like Mike Manley, for example, one of my favorites. They don't get the same respect that comic book artists do, and I think that's partly because of the medium. Comic book artists are finally starting to come on. I hate it when it does this. There it goes. Are finally starting to get the respect that they deserve, creatively at least. But that's because they're finally starting to really experiment with the medium. I haven't really done anything that's too experimental yet, myself. That's quite okay. Or at least nothing that I've published. But back then, it was comic strip artists that always got that actually got respect and would actually see the presidents. I mean, it's kind of surreal thinking, like Maxfield Parrish, an illustrator, was so successful that President oh dear, I just forgot, Woodrow Wilson, would call him and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for a vacation home near you. Can we hang out?" And Maxwell Parrish is like, "Don't you have World War One to fight, man?" No, that is so not what Maxwell Parrish said. I maybe should just start creating characters for my show. So, Stoner Maxfield Parrish. Oh, dude. You stay here with the kids. I'm going to take the nanny and move into my studio with her. God. Woodrow Wilson, why you trying to hang out with me, man? Don't you have to, defeat the Kaiser? Alright. Maybe characters are not the best thing for this show. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I'm just trying to think of other situations that Stoner Maxfield Parrish would be in. Cat, what are you doing? My cat's here and doing weird stuff, like usual. Now, I'm kind of half tempted to like get a thick brush tool on this thing and ink his suit like he would have, which was very you could see his influence, the way he inks suits, and easily in Jack Kirby and Will Eisner's work. Just that thick brushwork that he did. Kind of awesome. If you remember, Will Eisner, when he did The Spirit, would use like one of those thick Japanese brushes, which really created a nice layer of things. Let's see here. More drink. All right. The picture I kind of got this from when I was working from was one of the pictures where he was drawing a woman in his vaudeville performance. He's had like a whole bunch of drawings behind him. Kind of incredible. I kind of wish those shows were recorded for posterity's sake, but unfortunately, I mean, it's vaudeville, so a lot of that stuff is like lost unless it ended up becoming like, a Marx Brothers movie or something, which they took a lot of their vaudeville routines and worked it into that. But to the best of my knowledge, and I would love it if somebody came out there and be like, hey, no, here's a recording of Milton Caniff or one of those great vaudeville performers, comic artists who doing vaudeville. I absolutely would adore seeing that. Might have spent last night watching Von Bodie's live performances. Which, to be fair, I think Mark Bodie's the only working cartoonist that still kind of does that to the degree of what would be a vaudeville performance. No offense to Scott McCloud, who I love his TED Talk and stuff, but like, that's a TED Talk. That's not a vaudeville performance. All right, let's drop it. See how it looks. Don't look too bad. Check out everything. Yep, just a reminder about the highlight. Now, you'll notice right here, I made a little note to myself. The reason why I did that was because sometimes, when you're working, you might forget something like where you want to have the strongest highlight. And I've mentioned this before, and I am sorry if I sound like a broken record to y'all. But the beauty is, if I'm doing this, I might not have remembered where I wanted to put the highlight. And this picture of him working in like a vaudeville setting. There we go. Has you don't want to be doing that. Try this again here. There we go. We want this on a different layer. Yeah, so he's on stage, and there's like the heavy stage lights kind of coming at him here. And he was actually looking up at a model that was sitting for him. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Boom. Shaka. The highlights in here. So my question for everybody who's watching, what's your favorite Milton Caniff comic? I have always wanted to just really sit down and read Terry and the Pirates, and I have honestly never have. I appreciate that kind of stuff. But I've never actually jumped into it like I should. I mean, especially like I said, the sheer influence it's had on Jack Kirby and Eisner and the lot, and Al Williamson. I mean, Al. I bring his name up like every week because I love Al Williamson as an artist. Let's see here. I'm going to try something, and hopefully it will work out. But first, I need to pull something up to check. I don't have it in front of me. Okay. I don't normally sign these, but this particular one I want to. And what I want to do is, come on. There we go. Let's see if I can do this in his style. You ready? And I've never practiced this. Bob Kane ripped him off. But Bob Kane rips off a lot of people. Oops. Ah. I want this to be in black. Okay, not bad for not practicing that. In all his glory. My best portrait? Well, not as good as yesterday's, but it is fine. All right, everybody. Until next time, what can I tell